for you guys to be joining us tonight. This is going to be something special. We're going to be doing a virtual live stream book signing for More Than Happy, the book that I wrote. And I'm just glad you guys are joining us tonight. We're going to go through a whole bunch of things. We're going to talk about where the book came from and kind of how it got started and all the good stuff with that. Now we need people to do like, share.
Yes. So we need you to like and share. We need you to comment if you can. We need you to subscribe. That would be great if you could do that, just so that you would know what's happening. Subscribe to those things. So we would love for you to do that.
Yeah. So we also are going to have some cool stuff. We've got a Visa, $50 Visa prize that we'll be giving away.
That's right.
So that's pretty
card,
cool.
yeah.
For them to do that, you need to fill out a form. There should be something in the description for you to click,
a form,
whatever
it
is. Yeah, the thingy.
We need you to fill that
Fill
out.
out the thingy, would you please? So,
and then that way you can be entered in for the $50 Visa gift card.
Yeah. So we're kind of letting people kind of populate and get on here, but while we're doing that, let me say a couple things. We've got a few people around with us. We've got our More Than Happy team that's here. We've got Faith Gill, who's been managing social media and stuff. Montana Russenberger is in there doing, and she's just my assistant. She does a ton of things. She does everything.
She handles everything.
Everything. That's true. A lot of times you think it's me, it's actually her.
Absolutely.
So you have to say thanks to that. And then Karen is here. Karen did the major editing of the book and actually brought the book to fruition. I mean, without.
She made you sound kind of smart.
Yeah. Well, she made me not sound dumb.
Right,
that was kind of the key. So Karen did that. Steven's our producer. He's producing that and all the technical side of it, but tons and tons of people that have been a part of this More Than Happy journey. And it's kind of crazy that we're even here.
Yeah.
When I look back and I think of the timeline and was up to in this, there was a point. Matter of fact, I would say there's multiple points where I didn't feel like we would be here. I didn't feel like that the book would actually come to fruition. I thought that, well, in fact, I had it on my computer and it was as finished as I could get it. And I just really felt like that was the end of it. And that's the end of that story. I knew God had told me to write a book. And I'd made a run at that hill a number of times. And I didn't really expect that it could happen. In fact, I got to a point where all of the odds were against this book ever getting pushed or ever happening. And to the point to where I said, okay, I'm going to try to stop feeling like a failure in the area of just writing and as an author. And so I had the file on my computer. That was it. And that's where it sat. And it sat there for, I don't know how long, until Stacey and I prayed about it and we discussed it. And actually Stacey said, look, we need to get some people involved with this to help get this book finished and to get it out there because it's important. And so, that's when we put together a team of people, and we've had several people jump in with us and really be a part of helping finish the book.
Yeah, I think for you, God leads you to write comes easy. It's all the administrative part. Actually editing it and getting it to where somebody could actually send it to a publisher and actually get it done.
Yeah.
That was the part that you got hung up on. And it just took bringing in some more people that knew how to do those things. And then we got it out there. So,
well, and I'll tell you a little funny story. This is something no one's really, the people behind the scenes know about, but besides nobody else knows about. We had a publisher for the book originally. And as we this book together, they wanted to alter significant amounts of content within the book. And I just wasn't comfortable with it. And really after a period of time, we just realized that it just wasn't going to work. And our relationship, they didn't have the same goals and mindset that I had for this book. And so what happened was kind of early on, we sort of backed out of that. And we found a relationship with Amazon and built a relationship with them. And Karen drove that part home for us. And here the book is, but the process, it was complicated. I don't like it into anything else. And I find this sometimes in my life, and maybe you guys can, but in my life, there have been times where God told me to do something, and maybe he was telling me to do it to get ready for it, but I went ahead and did it right then. And then God, said, okay, you got to wait. And that's what I felt like with this, but the timing makes sense now.
Yeah, because the timing, originally we thought it was just about getting it out there, hurry. And then as the world has changed, and what better timing for this book to come out than right now when to figure out, am I happy? Is that the goal?
Yeah.
And so much strife. We thought it was about hurrying up and get it out there, and we thought we were disappointed that it wasn't getting out there
Yeah.
5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
But God was saying, "Not yet, not yet, not yet." And then finally now the go ahead to actually have people make life change in their life because of this book, and it couldn't have come at a better time. But God knew that, but
That's right.
we didn't know. So
Well, and the timeline she mentioned is not a joke. I mean, literally, this book has been together for a number of years. And I will say this, I've had people tell me, and maybe some of you can comment on this as well. They've said, um, I've read the book multiple times now. In fact, I'm on my time of going through the entire book, or maybe my third time of going through the book, and I'm finding something new every time. And I love that because that's how the book was written. I wrote the first draft of the book, and when I finally finished the draft of the book, I found myself going back, and when I would reread a chapter, God would inspire me to add other things to it and rearrange things and add more content. And over those years of the development of the book, God continued to invest in me, and I just turned around and put it back in the book as he asked me to do it. And so the book has so many nuances and so many other things embedded in it that just a simple blush reading won't see.
yeah.
But those things are there. And I remember we edited at one point, and I went back through it, and after the edit, it looked like I'd completely rewritten the book, because I just went back through it and I changed so many different things, not even that they'd edit, but parts. When I reread it, I was like, this could be clearer if this was this, and this is what's God shown me in this. And so it just became a really cool experience.
Yeah, and just in thinking about how you got to write the book at all was from years and years. It's basically your life
Yeah.
compiled together and your story of what God has done in your life. And that takes years to
It-
bring together,
yeah. Yeah. And it's scary too, because it, it's one thing to make something or produce something and give it away. Um, you don't necessarily have a personal vested interest in it.
Mm.
And that was the one thing. So, people have asked about the next book, and I'm going to write another book, and I'm in the process of that. But the next book, I won't be the subject of it. And I feel relieved because of that, because I really felt like that, it's one thing you produce, if I make French fries at McDonald's and you go, there's too much salt on them, I don't feel personally like, yikes. And I think there was some hesitation towards the end of the book when this was really going to happen on my part. I had some serious intrepidation, because I thought, I don't know that there's parts in this book that I don't know that I want to really share with everybody. Even as a public figure, there's times where you're just not exactly sure,
How
what are,
vulnerable you
yeah,
can be.
what are people going to think about that?
Mhm.
And so I kind of held back. I was like, because when people go, this is terrible, that's going to be personal. I
Well,
may
we as
cry a
your
little.
family held back too because we were a little scared of what you'd
Yeah,
write about us.
that's right. That's right. Always an illustration,
Yeah.
right? Always an illustration.
Yeah.
Um,
So if you're just joining with us, take a minute to like or subscribe to or post, comment, all those things. Share it if you can right now, because we're going to be doing some things on here that some other people and friends of yours might want to see. We'd love to have as many people as possible on here. So be sure and like or share, comment or subscribe there. So Scott, so
did we introduce and tell who you are?
oh no, I don't think so.
So this is my lovely wife, Stacey. So that I'm just not on this thing with just some hot chick that we don't know. So anyway, especially with the Rona, you got to be kin to each other to be in this proximity, right?
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I am Stacey. I'm Scott's wife, and we've been
married up. You can tell it.
And
So
we've got some kids and stuff.
a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a shoe, basically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me when you were one of the first people to read the book,
Mhm.
what did you think about it originally? Just that original draft of it.
The original draft, I thought that you were sharing a lot and being real vulnerable. But I really think that especially in ministry and mission, it's kind of the new wave is for people to be vulnerable. And I
Yeah.
think we went for years without people kind of putting out their own life out there in ministry and mission. And so I think this really, I think it was really amazing just to see that you would be that honest and open and vulnerable. You wrote about things that I thought only I knew about. And so I know from being a speaker too, sometimes there's things you want to share, and then sometimes there's a little over the
Right.
the line that you don't want to be vulnerable with. And so I was really amazed that you would be that vulnerable with people.
Probably one of my favorite chapters is the chapter about your dad.
Yeah.
What did you think about that? It's the biggest man I ever knew. It's chapter 18 in the book, and that's Stacey's dad, Al.
Yeah.
Incredible, incredible, incredible man.
Yeah, it's hard to read, because I love my dad, very, very much, and he's a big, big part of my life. And so, but the way that you brought that around and showed it from your perspective, the way his relationship with you changed, and just in general his relationship with the Lord,
Yeah.
him coming to know Christ, man, that's invaluable to me,
Yeah.
for you to be able to share that experience that I have for my dad with other people, and just to show the difference that Christ made in his life. Yeah, it was really, really special.
So Stacey has a book that she needs to write, and I'm just going to say it. It's something about prayer books about her dad. I
Oh
mean, that'd
yeah.
be so
Yeah,
powerful.
you'll
So
understand once you read the book.
yeah.
There's a lot about my dad, about prayer and journals, and so there's something I'm supposed to do with that. I'm just not sure
Oh,
what yet.
so good. I mean, absolutely so good. So I'm going to read a little passage out of here. I'm going to read a little story out of here. And it's probably my favorite story. I was afraid that it wasn't going to be everybody's favorite story. It kind of felt like it was a story that I was going to share that um, didn't fit necessarily. But many people have written to me or told me that this was their favorite story. It's chapter 14 of the book. It's about a horse named Whiskey. And I want to read that to you and just see what you think. A few years ago, Stacey and I hosted a retreat for married couples that ultimately ended up with a horseback ride along the Arkansas River. We all looked forward to the ride throughout the weekend. It would be a sunset trip with our sweethearts on the back of some beautiful, gentle animals, or so we thought. We got to the riding stables and discovered that there were more riders than they had gentle animals. What I mean is, they had plenty of horses, but they didn't have enough good horses for us. The owner said that since I was the leader, I would have to ride one of their less desirable horses. He took me to the pen that held a hodgepodge of horses, all of different colors and sizes. The group of horses noticed me immediately as we walked up to the fence. They all stopped chewing or walking and froze as they watched me at the gate. It was weird. It felt as if they were sizing me up for something bad. The owner explained I needed to decide among them which one I wanted. He gave their names, with each name their disposition. This is Red, he throws people. This is Lightning, he will take off running and you can't stop him. I laughed with a sort of nervous laugh and asked, right? I just knew that some jokester in our group had put this guy up to this crazy scare the pastor trick. He looked at me with a snap and said, no, it's not a joke. Pay attention because you're going to have to choose one of these. All of a sudden, the gravity of this thing sank in. It felt like I was at the gator pit there to pick out a pet. In a state of panic, I asked if I could just walk, but almost as fast as the crowd of my peers watching from behind me with smiles blurted out, no! One of the last horses he introduced was a horse named Whiskey. The owner explained, that is Whiskey. He was a biter. To summarize my choices, I could get thrown, stomped on, run off with, or bitten. I chose bitten. I did ask how to avoid being bitten, and the smart alecky reply he said was stay away from his mouth. To be totally honest here, I'd only ridden one other horse in my life, and it was connected to a merry-go-round at the state fair when I was a kid. My inexperience filled me with fear, but it also gave me a false idea that I might be overstating the risk I was about to take. Being ignorant is a blessing and a curse. Whiskey and I set out for a ride. What I had been looking forward to as a ride of my life turned out to be the ride for my life. We hadn't gotten far before I was faced with the reality of Whiskey's character defect. We were on the trail, and Whiskey wanted to stop and eat a little grass. I thought, no problem. If his mouth is full of grass, I'd be tempted to fill it with my leg. Mm-hmm. But our guide didn't want the horses to eat along the way. So I was asked to pull up on the reins and get Whiskey to moving along. That's when it all went wrong. As soon as I pulled the reins to move him along, his head turned almost full around, and he looked me in the eyes, like the exorcist. The anger that a horse should be incapable of. I realized I was on the back of Seabiscuit, the psycho. At the next stop for grass, once again I pulled on the reins. This time, with the speed of a rattlesnake, Whiskey whipped his head around and bit the calf of my leg. It was a glancing bite, but it was enough for the pain to cause me to almost black out. The pain of a horse bite can only be understood by clamping a piece of your skin in a vise until it bleeds. The panic of the pain almost made me throw my body off the horse onto the grass and to walk back. I had heard that whispering to horses had a positive effect. I tried whispering to him. I thought maybe somehow I could drown out the voices in his head that told him to maim me. Unfortunately, after the first bite, the second one came out of nowhere. No provocation, no pulling on the reins, no nothing. Just for pleasure, he bit me. It seemed at this point the fact that I was still on his back was enough to cause him to reach around and get me. I know you're saying to yourself right now, just get off. The problem is that each time he would bite, he would speed up and make jumping off seem deadly. I was a hostage on the back of my equestrian terrorist. I really didn't know if I had tears in my eyes. I really don't know if I had tears in my eyes, but honestly, the pain was so sharp that I couldn't take another bite. It was somewhere between the second and third bite that the pain and fear turned to anger. If I'd had a gun, I would have sent Whiskey to the pasture in the sky. Unfortunately, I had no killing option. The pain made me desperate, and maybe that's what birthed the creativity to overcome. As Whiskey looked back, faking a bite just to see me jump, I noticed something that might help me overcome the four-legged demon that vexed me. Now, what I'm about to tell you, I've never shared with anyone in my life. I want you to know what I did next was born out of desperation and pain. I was a man on the ropes of a mental breakdown. It happened the very next time Whiskey turned to bite. My red, swollen, throbbing leg, I did something unspeakable. I poked him in the eye. Yes, I did, right in that big, brown, evil eye. I stuck my finger right in. I could immediately see the shock on his horse face. He couldn't believe it. Whiskey was stunned. As he looked at me through his one good eye, I could tell I had gotten through. Just then, I leaned forward and I whispered in his ears, "There's more where that came from." I chuckled to myself. I was no longer a victim. I was making a stand against my horse bully. He was strong-willed for sure because he tried it again, and just like before, I was ready. My aim was true. The poke was executed to perfection. I couldn't get over the satisfaction I felt as I jabbed my finger in his eye, only to be face to face with horse shock. I know right now some of you animal lovers are thinking how cruel this is. You'd have to be there. You'd have to find your tender leg in the jaws of pain. Torture will make a man do things. Eventually, both of his eyes were red and watering, and both of my legs were purple and bruised, but somehow Whiskey and I came to an agreement. You don't bite my leg, and I won't poke you in the eye. Simple as that. The remainder of the ride was less eventful and even enjoyable. Whiskey taught me a lot about riding a difficult horse, but he also taught me a lot about life. In simple, life is unfair. So often in life, things are thrown at us that we didn't want or ask for. Kids are born to abusive parents. Faithful wives get left for younger versions. Kind people get taken advantage of. Homeowners get stolen from. Hard workers get laid off. Healthy people have heart attacks. And horseback rides get hijacked by psycho horses. The moments in our lives are a hodgepodge collection of happiness and horror. The only real choice we have is when we find ourselves perched on a crazy horse is how we're going to deal with the saddle that we're sitting in. The television preacher promises that in life things will be much easier, better, and more prosperous if we simply believe. The problem is their claims lack real grit when tested against the trail ride of life. What's more is Jesus himself, the original cowboy of life's rodeo, told us this simply. While you're in the world, you will have tribulation, John 16:33. What God is offering in the life that is God-centered is that happiness isn't an easy life, but a satisfying life. God doesn't promise perfect horse rides or living without problems, but what he does promise is if we surrender our lives to him, it will be a ride worth staying on until we hear the whistle. The real horsepower, no pun intended, of the more than happy life is that it can stand up to the difficulties of the ride. Paul writes this, "That's why I take pleasure in my weakness and in the insults and hardship and persecutions and troubles I suffer for Christ. For I am weak, then I am strong." What Paul is saying is there is a profound discovery in our most difficult moments. That discovery is my need for and dependency on God. Things are well, I can be lulled into believing that I can handle the bucking jumps and the twists of life's problems on my own. But as soon as life turns that unexpected way and I lose my grip on the reins and my spurs slip, my courage is easily thrown and my willpower slips off and my resources are completely overwhelmed. It's easy at that moment to find myself careening through the air with broken emotions, the desire to quit, and a dirty mouthful of discouragement. My dad, who grew up raising horses and riding in the rodeo, would often say, there ain't a horse that can't be rode, and there ain't a cowboy that can't be throwed. We all understand that reality. We all have felt the pain of the dirt and the pressure of the hoof as we have fallen more than once. So what is the hope that the elder apostle Paul was trying to get across to us fellow bronc riders? Our deep need for God. He is expressing the reality that when the ride is easy, things are going well, we don't feel the slightest need for God. Oh, in the after ride interview, we will give God the credit, but in everyday practice, as long as we think we got it, we don't give God the slightest nod. How can we know that we're doing this? The easiest gauge is look at our prayers. When things are good, we pray short, simple prayers like a drive-by shooting towards heaven, and we with the right. But when things are in trouble and we're in over our heads in the dirt and manure of the arena floor, our prayers are way more desperate, genuine, and content-filled. When problems come that are larger than life's resources, we turn to the one who's larger than life. We tend to think that we got it until we don't. Paul's letting us know that not only does God bring the need and help to our heart, but he also brings something else that makes it more important. Later in the same letter to the Corinth church, Paul writes, for we live by believing, not seeing. Most of my life, I believed that when trouble came and when I found myself on the back of a bad horse, my need for God was to be my problem solver. I need God to fix what is broken. The longer I'm in pursuit of him and the life that he's asking me to live, I'm learning that there's something else he gives me when trouble comes. It's more important than a good fix. Paul hints to it in his comparison. He contrasts sight versus faith, which means the most serious of our faith isn't doubt or unbelief, but sight, what we see, what we want to see, and what we think we see, all stand against our faith. My eyes say that I'm on a bad horse and this is going to be a horrific ride. God says that he can make the bad horse work for my good and his glory if I only have the faith. I see problems and I want solutions. From God's perspective, he sees problems as a fertile ground to change me. I'm nearsighted. God is all-sighted. I have always felt like I invited God into my problems to be the solution, but God's presence in my problems might not be for a solution, but for sight. He may be less concerned with my problem solving than he is with perspective changing. God wants me to see something different. Faith is the lens that makes our hope visible in the most trying of circumstances. The best horse and the most pleasant ride in life requires no trust, no vision, and no hope. It's only when things are difficult and I truly have the opportunity to see God show up in bigger ways than my problem. My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. That's a horse. And just a fun story.
Mhm.
And we had a good time on that trip, though.
Oh, wow.
People have asked the question, too. They're like, are those real stories? Is that the truth?
Oh, yes.
That happened.
That happened.
That happened. And I was the brunt of that joke. And it wasn't a funny story that day.
Yeah.
It turned into that.
Yeah.
So we're going to sign some books. And
Yes.
we have some
And I have some
Q&As,
questions for
some
you.
questions. Some of y'all
Yes.
sent in some questions and questions. And so we're gonna answer a few of those. I kind of run through and sign a few books.
Yes.
And see what we can figure out from there. And what I
Yes.
can't answer, Stacey's going to answer.
We'll see. Okay, this is from Jason. And so Jason asked, what is your favorite part of the book? And when did you realize that you wanted to write a book?
Favorite part of the book. I think the part that I enjoy the most is when I talk about some of the things that in my childhood. I love to reminisce and I love to talk about that. I love the chapter about your dad was really, really significant to me just because I watched your dad grow into this spiritual giant that I didn't even know that was possible. And so those are some of my more favorite parts of it. Writing a book, never really set out to write a book. I don't really know how we got here, honestly. And I'm just being completely honest. I never even thought about being an author. I've never thought about this has been so successful and that's great. But that's just something that we set out to do. It's just something that God asked me to do. And I'm glad that I've had a chance to do it. And I'm very honored. One of the things I think is really important is that I'm really honored that someone would be willing to read something that I've written. I think that's really a big part for me. I'm very grateful because I just didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay. From Manny, what are reactions to the feedback from the book and its success?
Feedback has been so good. I don't think I've had unless someone filtered them, I haven't had a single negative feedback. So I feel like it's coming and it should happen. I hope that the book impacts people that maybe they give some pushback to it. That tells us we're reaching people that are outside of our circle. But so far it's been unbelievably encouraging. Very grateful. Here's one thing though. There's so much of this book that's based on what God has taught me in my life. I really feel like all I really did was tell the story that God has written. That's just basically the only thing, so yeah.
I think it's been so good to just have people that are from all over and from all parts of our lives, maybe from our childhoods, from our high school, from college, just all different aspects of our life. We've had people write us and tell us that this has made a difference in their life, and just so relatable to be able to. You are a good storyteller, and you share your life so well, and you do reminisce. Oh my gosh, y'all. He is like he is so tender hearted and remembers so many things I don't even remember. But he can get so sentimental about things. But what's so beautiful about that is that you remember stories in great detail. And you shared some stories from your childhood that I didn't even realize that were so special. And I think that relates to people that all throughout your life that have known you, or even that don't know you, but can just relate to the real type of stories that you share.
That's awesome.
About your life. And so that's been so good. Okay, from Stephanie. I wonder if Brother Scott ever struggles with having faith that something will work out in his life. Like he believes that God will work in other people's lives, but does he get uncertain about his own life? And if so, how does he remove that which is blocking him from total surrender and finally knowing it will be okay?
What a great question, Stephanie. I really love that question. I think there's an important, divide in that question that I think will help answer it. Do I ever question whether or not God's going to do something the way that I want him to do it? I do. I question it all the time.
Sure.
I don't know that God's always going to answer my prayer the way that I want it answered. I think the difference, though, and I think this is an important part, is that my faith isn't based on God's answering my prayer the way I want it answered. I know, number one, he hears me, and I know that he is going to answer me. And whatever his answer is, I believe is absolutely the best. And I believe that. I have conviction about that. I mean, I don't second guess God in that way. I may question whether he's going to answer it the way I want it answered, and we have conversations about that, God and I. We'll have that discussion. But my faith isn't based on whether he answers it that way or brings that miracle that direction or does that, because I trust and believe in him and we have a relationship. So however he answers it, and I know that that's best, even though I might not feel like that's best at that moment. I know that ultimately God has my best interest, and he proved that when he sent his son for me. So I don't really have to second guess that part. So gathering in faith as to whether God's going to do something the way I think my faith really, if I were to gather in faith to answer that question, I would gather my faith on the side of just trusting God, period. Whatever his decision is, whatever his direction is, let's just trust him, because he has interest in mind. So that's a great question.
Good question. Okay. Another one is, what is the title of your second book?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea. I mean, literally no idea. I've got a couple of ideas about a book, and I've actually written some chapters some years ago on some different ideas. So I don't know. I don't know. I want it to be, I don't know. I got to pray about that. So this 21 days of fasting and prayer is going to be a great time to try to figure some of those things out.
So good. And we would like for y'all to pray.
Yeah,
about
please.
What he needs to talk about in the next book. So
absolutely.
What are some things that can hinder you from having a more happy life, even if you read the book?
I really think I express and deal with most of the things that are the main hindrance. I think there's three things that are the book. And that is understanding, whatever circumstances I'm in, God has a purpose for me. And I think it's one of the big mistakes that we make is we sometimes shelve our purpose of God for God when difficult times come. Yeah. And that's a problem. And what you don't realize, you're grieving the Holy Spirit. When the Holy Spirit's grieved, you're going to be grieved. than happy when the Holy Spirit
Yep.
who lives in you. If you're a believer and the Holy Spirit's living in you, there's things that purpose. God has a purpose for y'all. Even if you're in the middle of a calamity and it's totally your fault, you still have a purpose in that. I think the other thing is God's promises, reflecting on, remembering, keeping close to you God's promises, and then staying close to God's plan, realizing that God has a plan for everything. You know, those three things are the theme that you're going to see throughout the book, is that purpose, plan, and God's promises. Those three things are so important to the more than happy, because this book is not about being happy. I did get one little piece of negative feedback. I want to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah.
My one little negative feedback. I don't think that God's interested in you being happy. Okay, so the book says more than happy. That's the title of it. I don't think she read the title. It's more than happy. What I will say is this, and we talk about Jesus saying, I'm trying to give you an ultimately satisfying and rich life. If you took the word happy, or you took and you gave it a definition, you said happy life, ultimate, rich, and satisfying, I would say that they're probably the same. We're just arguing semantics. I think God is concerned about the joy that we have inside of us, because he talks about it plenty. The joy that we express, which is called rejoicing. He is concerned about that. Why? Because the greatest advertisement for the reality of is joy-filled Christians. And so Paul writes a whole book. The book of Philippians is nothing but a joy-filled book. And I dedicate a whole chapter to how important that is. That's the breadcrumb trail that God left us. So I think God does care about us being happy. He really does. I think that. Now the book is titled More Than Happy. So there's more to it than that.
Right.
So it's not about our circumstances. It's more than that. So,
because you talk about a lot in the beginning of the book about how you were always about the circumstance. You could be happy only if the circumstances were good. But then we all know that what happens when the circumstances aren't good.
Yeah.
And what happens when we have those hard times in life. And then those were times that you struggled and that we all struggle, I think, is how can we be happy or joyful, more than happy, joyful reasons when it doesn't look good.
Yeah. And I want to say one thing. The strange thing for me is that my dealing with anxiety, depression, these combined, was not out of a life that had major calamities in it. I didn't really have a good reason for what I was experiencing, except for I was disconnected from God.
Yeah.
And there were things that God was trying to show me that I wasn't paying attention to, even though I'm a pastor. And that's the thing, is that I'm a pastor in the middle of a successful ministry. I have a successful marriage. I have a great family. Things are going great. But there was this incredible dread and anxiety and fear that I needed to deal with, and I needed to understand how to deal with it. And I just finally got so heavy that I just made a decision. I'm going to do something. And I went to my doctor, Dr. Chris. And I sat down with him, and he said, for probably 30, 45 minutes. And that's also in the book. We talk about how that was the first step. And I realized, hey, you know what? There's a journey here, and there's some things I need to learn. And there is a life that's worth living that's beyond what I'm living right now.
Yeah, that's good.
So, yeah.
That's good. Okay. This is from Kendall. What are your best tips for time management when it comes to balancing life, career, family, and God?
Wow. Time. Oof. Okay. Best tips for time management. So, Stacey and I, which probably ought to be something we write about sometime, is we came up with a thing called the priority notebook. And it was just a way for us to keep our life disentangled. Stacey and I had a real struggle early on. I'm going to say Stacey and I, it was me, had a real struggle with, how do you do ministry? How do you be a dad? How do you stay home with your family? How do you teach your kids? How are you available to all the in your mission and ministry of large, fast growing church? How do you, do all that you've got to do and make sure that the most significant relationships are met? And what Stacey and I did was we created a notebook, and we made in that notebook, and it was just a simple spiral bound notebook. And we put our greatest priorities in there. And then more than that, we put how we keep those really at the highest list. Because if I took a test, even back then when I was super out of balance, and if I'd taken a test and you'd said, hey, what's the most important relationship in your life? Then I would have said God.
Right.
You'd said, okay, what's your most important earthly relationship? I would have said you. I could have gotten them correct as far as the order, but what I wouldn't have gotten was I wouldn't have gotten it in practice.
Yeah.
So there was some practices. And so we would work on that. And kind of like a nutritionist would design a diet, we
Mhm.
designed how we were going to spend our lives so that make sure that we were spending them on the most important things. And we used that priority notebook for probably, I don't know,
Years.
yeah, years and years and
Yeah.
years. We would pull it out and work on it and add things to it and revise things. And we'd always do it somewhere really cool.
Yeah.
So it's like we go somewhere
Make
really
it fun.
yeah, really beautiful place or a great place to eat, and we would go through our priority notebook where you really want to do it.
And when things would get out of whack, we do actually say we
Go
got to
back
go
to it.
back to the priority notebook.
That's right. And we
Yeah.
gave each other the license to pull that out.
Yeah.
And so we could, I may come home. I know that has nothing to do with More Than Happy, but maybe that's something we ought to talk about. But anyway, that's how we prioritize it. And you have to keep the most important things. You have to do that in practice. And that's a constant mending.
Yeah. Well,
So-
because if you have God in the proper place, you know, you can't do the other things without God being in the proper place, but you got to give the time, effort, and energy to that.
No, that's right. That's exactly right.
So, okay. So, if you haven't liked or shared, or subscribed yet, do that, because we want some more people to hear about the More Than Happy book, and because it really does change lives, and we are seeing that as people send back to us their comments on the book. We're seeing that it really changes lives.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so we would love for you to do that. Make sure to comment, like, share, subscribe, all those things, because we would love that.
Yeah, and one thing to be aware of is that I write like a toddler. Okay, so when I write in the
You
front of
do.
when I write in the front of your book, I look like a 6-year-old wrote in the front of your
Sorry
book,
about that.
and I don't know why.
You should have paid more attention in penmanship.
I
or whatever.
try, and you know what I've noticed? If the pen's fatter, I do better.
Oh,
So I need
okay.
fatter, not like Crayola marker, but fatter pens or what have you. So
Okay.
We didn't get to everybody's questions,
yeah,
so we'll send them a personal message.
Yeah.
Okay, so Faith was letting us know that we didn't really get to everybody's questions, but we will make sure to send a personal message to the people that sent
Heck
in a
yeah.
question we didn't get to answer, because every question is important to us, but we just have limited amount of time. So
Yeah, and you know, we do have a More Than Happy Facebook group, and you're more than welcome to be a part of that. That's a place where we actually it's an insider group. I mean, we talk about different things, and I go live on there quite a bit and post on there all the time, and it's just a really cool group. You're welcome to be a part of that. More Than Happy on Facebook, I think, is how you just find it or whatever. But man, we're super excited. There's still a ton of books to sign. I'm going to be working on those.
Yes. We'll be working on signing the books. I think we would like to thank everybody for just the journey that we have been on, to be able to get this done. Because like Scott mentioned earlier, this was a work of God and a love for you to want to do, but we didn't exactly know how to do it. First book you've ever written. And so it took a group of people to be able to do this. So there were some people that edited very early on, like Juanice and Abby Atkinson, Juanice Davenport. Those people edited early
Smart
on.
People.
And it was very, very, it would have been very difficult to do this without them.
Yep.
Also Jessica Spooler.
Yep.
We want to thank her because she did the cover of the book, and it's beautiful. We love it. And so that she has also helped with a ton of other things along the way, but her claim to fame on that is the graphics on the book is just amazing. Right. And so thank you, Jessica, for all your hard work on that. Our family has been the fact that you shared most of our lives in this book.
I have great content because of our family.
And so Karen Peeler, who is here tonight, we're so grateful for her. And
oh my gosh.
If we had Karen, like, absolutely this would never have
we'd be less
done.
than happy.
Yeah, we'd be less than happy. She has edited, she has sent in, she has made things happen. We're so grateful for her. Eddie, her dad actually was Eddie Brand. He was instrumental in being
constantly encouraging me and going, hey, get that book done. You need to get that book done. And you know, when a pastor has been in the ministry 50 years, you know, you listen to and you honor what they say. It's a huge deal. Kendall too, you know, Kendall threw me under the bus like 17 times. Every time he spoke, every time he spoke, he'd say, Dad's got this book. He's supposed to get it finished. And he'd put a deadline on it that wasn't even real. He would do it just to make me have to get going. So
and then your mom, I know that you owe so much to your mom.
That's so true.
You know,
little booger.
Miss Joanne, she has just brought Scott up in a way that he would accept Christ.
That's right. She led me to.
And then all of this really is goes back to her and
That's
her commitment to the Lord. And so we're grateful for her and for all that she's done.
Yep.
For our family.
Yep. And I remember when I was a kid, Mom, the Bible was so important. You didn't put anything on the Bible. She just always.
To this day, I don't put anything. I don't stack anything on top of my Bible because she taught me when I was just coming to know Christ. You don't put anything on the Bible.
Nothing.
Because the Bible is special. And
That's right.
Yeah. So, but lots of other people have helped along the way. Stephen and the team here at the church has helped tremendously.
Absolutely.
With everything that we've had to do. Montana.
Michelle
has been amazing. Michelle has been.
Yeah, Montana's
amazing.
done. By the way, to go back,
Yeah.
Montana, there's so much of this that's happened because of her. Everything. I mean, oh my gosh, unbelievable.
Yeah. So. Y'all would have the ones that you ordered and were
that's
sent
right.
if Scott had to do it. So I mean, me and
true.
Scott.
That's true. Yeah, that was kind of the
Montana did all that. So she's been instrumental in making sure that everything went just right.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
we're so grateful. Faith has been our daughter has been just an encourager along the way. Every moment that
managing social media
and doing everything, keeping us on track with the things that needed to happen. Hasn't spared anything to make sure that everything got done. And so she's awesome.
Yeah. And we knew it was going to be a crazy blast off trip when we first started. And I don't remember like day one, where were we at day one on Amazon? First day we were ranked? Remember the rank?
92.
We were 92 on Amazon, among the Christian books, first day. And we were like, this is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And it has been, it's been a great adventure.
And then for that church, friends.
Oh yeah.
Amazing the way y'all have shared the book and shared the group, and y'all invited people to the group and given books away. And I mean, just amazing.
Absolutely.
Amazing people.
Yeah.
So.
If it wasn't for our circle, we wouldn't even, this wouldn't even be possible.
That's right.
So it's an exciting day. So this is our first book signing. We're going to do another one coming up, but I've still got books to sign. I'll sign those. If I sign these while I'm talking, y'all, it will be even worse than a toddler writing in them. So I will write words in them.
He's already had a couple that he had to tear off the front
cover.
Of the book because
so we send them to the prison ministry.
So.
You know what I'm saying? So, oh my God. there's the celebration. Oh my gosh. What the world?
I thought I missed shot.
I'm going to tell you, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to throw some streamers. No, we're going to shoot a gun and scare the heck out of everybody. The neighbors have called the police.
Have to draw somebody out of here.
Somebody's name.
Yes. Because
gets the $50 gift card.
Yes, it gets a $50 Visa gift card.
That's right.
So are y'all ready for that?
Hold on. You got to stir it up and not look down in there.
Okay.
All right. Who's ready for it? Let's see.
Dun, 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 dun. Number 15.
15. All right, we're looking them up. We're going to see who it is. We're going to make the announcement.
Billy Red.
Billy Red.
Oh, how cool.
That is awesome. Well, Billy gets the $50 gift card.
Yep.
And so that's awesome, Billy. We hope that you enjoy that and get to do something fun with it. So,
man, absolutely.
We love you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for being with us today. We are super excited about everything that's going on. Continue to tell people about the book. The more you post, the more you talk about it, the more we put it in front of people.
Share, subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. And that'll make all the difference. So anyway, thank you for being here, and God bless you. And I pray that this book inspires you to live the more than happy life that God designed you for. Thank you.
Thank you.